it's weird to me. I'd like to know how he bought the guns. I think if we're going to talk about that, then I guess it is relevant. Like, all right, so how did he get them? Did he go to a gun store? Did he buy them from a private individual? Because they never make that distinction. If he had AR-15s, like
did he get everything legally? You said once he turned 18, or is that what's being said?
That's what I'm reading. He got it legally, and it's an argument the left is using. Like, hey, if you think gun laws and restrictions aren't going to do anything, why'd this guy wait until his 18th birthday to buy his guns? And like, he got these legally. But I don't even know what he used. I just know what he bought on his 18th birthday. They're making money out of it.
Yeah. And I don't know where he bought them. People always bring up gun control, but I've never heard any gun control ideas that would actually work and would be feasibly put into practice that aren't already out there. Like keeping them locked if you have children should be mandatory, I think. But how do you enforce that? Are we going to go into every gun owner's home and make sure he's got his guns locked up properly? How are you going to know who all the gun owners are? We'll need to make a list. Are we going to round people up if they don't apply for the list? We gave you 6 months to get on the list. You're not on the list and you own a firearm. Well, now you're guilty of a crime. Are we going to do that? Because you're going to have to do that if you want to enforce that law. And a lot of people aren't going to like that.
Most of the enforce it accurately. I would do it like auditing. Like,
so the only way that it'll work
I'm in your house
accurately. We've got laws already that they don't really enforce.
No, for example, there's an accident in the house with kids in it. The police come, they check to see the security of the guns. If they're not in a safe locked up, well, now you got a second problem to add to the list. And that's how they do it. Like, people know, like, man, if something was wrong, cop comes in here because my wife called me for being too drunk and abusive. And now I got two problems because the cop noticed my glass gun case, or
Yeah, I do the idea of getting people's self motivation involved in that, right? Get people looking after their own interest.
You could probably get that through if you did something like that, because most gun owners want their guns to be stored if they've got kids. But if you don't have kids, you don't. Like, if you don't have kids in your home, like, the idea of locking your gun behind like 2 or 3 switches and levers is absurd. It's insanity to you, because the whole purpose was you needed this tool at a moment's notice to defend your life. Like that's the scenario that a lot of gun owners have guns for. So, like, you're not going to convince them to stick it in a bunch of locks and drawers and safes and vaults and special drawers. None of that's, most of that stuff's nonsense anyway. Like, those special drawers and stuff, like that Jason Bourne shit.
Maybe you guys ever used nonsense? Guns? Or
I don't trust any kind of a lock that requires a fingerprint. What if I don't have my fucking finger and I need the gun? Like, again, we're talking about the thing that we need
if you're sweaty?
To defend our lives. Like, there's a reason cops don't have fingerprint activated.
I thought you were
holsters.
saying secret drawers were bullshit, and it's like, I don't know.
But secret drawers are cool.
Yeah, have you seen those secret drawers where the guy like leans on the headboard of his bed and a shotgun rolls out?
Yeah,
and then you're just firing blind through the sleep in your eyes.
No, it's got a flashlight on it. Don't worry.
Oh, good.
You have a new girlfriend over. You keep getting fucking the shotgun added to you.
No, I have 5 cans of bear spray hidden in every room in my house.
I mean, yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, I don't know that there are laws that stop someone who's determined to do a thing. That all they do is end up.
What's your response to the argument about this is only happening here in the U.S., not anywhere
else? Oh, it's because we got so many guns. That's why it's happening here, because we have so many guns. So there's no going back.
There's no way to unring that bell.
But you just think you can't. You think there's no possible way we could do anything for this. Then why try?
No. I think that the guns are already there, and you're not going to take the salt out of the ocean or the guns out of this country.
But you still got to try, right? Like we agree that this state of affairs.
Try
is
what?
No.
I agree that we should. Law-abiding we should try. I agree we should try something for sure.
Yeah, that's good, right? If part of the problem goes something like there's too many guns out there, Taylor. If part of the problem goes if there's too many guns out there and there's no real way to get rid of them, and only law-abiding citizens are going to turn them in, so what? Over time, these guns go somewhere. Some of these guns will be in law-abiding citizens' hands. We get rid of them. That's not a bad idea.
It seems like as a net between the law-abiding citizen and the non-law-abiding citizen, that if you have a buyback program, the law-abiding will abide by it very quickly. And
but are we stopping shit with law-abiding citizens having weapons? Did any, like, for example, here we have 2 police officers supposedly on hand there who are not only law-abiding citizens but state mandated employees who are carrying weapons here, and it still didn't stop this shit, right? Like, how do you stop a random rising up from a populace of a person armed with a weapon going to attack unarmed civilians in a random location.
Well,
That doesn't
if
have to
you're-
be
Well,
schools,
it's
it
not
could
a
be
ran-
If your
parks,
police
it could be-
officers aren't willing to step up and do their job, then there's nothing that can prevent
But you just
that.
can't. There's no way you can have the manpower to cover everything. You can't cover gyms, libraries.
But we did though.
parks.
In this instance, we did. In this particular instance, we had the manpower there assigned to protect the place, and it failed. And
Yeah, but it's a bit of a-
to me,
It's a bit
that's
of a
the
straw
bigger
man,
issue.
right? Because sure, we've got it here, and maybe in this case, if perhaps it will turn out that these officers acted poorly.
It's what
and they
happened in
could
the
have
last
acted
one
differently.
too. It's what
What
happened in
was
the last one
the
too.
which one was the last one?
That awful thing in Buffalo where there was a security guard there too, and it just didn't matter.
What do you think of?
In that instance, he was killed, like in the line of duty. But in this instance, these guys fucking ran. I think we can't let that get lost on us. But the bigger problem of like why there are mass shootings in the United States, there are mass shootings in the United States because there are mass amounts of weapons in the United States.
Yeah.
It's because we have so many guns. I don't think there's just something about Americans that makes
No, I
us
don't think so
want to
either.
shoot.
I think you get some just small percentage of people who are disturbed enough that this is the thing they think is going to do something, or this is what they want to do.
well, we
give
give a ton of attention to it as
the
well.
attention hurts as
I know
well.
what
It
this kid looks
encourages
like.
the people. Yep, for sure.
I
It
shouldn't
gives
know what
the
that kid
idea.
looks like.
Yep.
But
I don't think any of this gets stopped until you have some ability to restrict people from getting these weapons. Because how can you? Like,
Well,
what is the mechanic
you
by which
can't.
you
They'll
have?
just buy it off the black market
Well,
if
the
they
thing
want
is,
to do
all
something.
right. So like currently,
But everything. I mean, if I want to go to the fucking gym, if I want to work out, I find it harder to go to the gym than to walk out my front door because each little bit of barrier of entry makes me less likely to carry through with
Do
that.
you
right?
apply that to the war on drugs?
I play that probably. What is
Yeah.
So you
And I
think
think
that
it's true,
theoretically the
actually.
war on drugs could work if you just made it so impossibly difficult to get heroin and marijuana that we could succeed?
I think there's a bit of a difference here, and we can drill down into it if you like. But if we're trying to prevent this activity for this, and yes, these things are not going to stop all cases of it, and yes, we are not going to get the diehard individual who plans for years to obtain a firearm to shoot up something. You're not going to stop that person. But this is some stupid fucking kid who bought a weapon. Presumably, it sounds like legally. Whether or not he used this particular weapon, does it matter which weapon he used to shoot these people?
yeah, it absolutely does. It's very
Why?
important. It matters to me how.
Well, I mean, most people are
acquired the-
killed by handguns if we're going by numbers.
because like the discussion is like, what can we do? What more can we do to prevent this? And it's like, well, hang on, what were we already doing? Did he get around current systems? Did he beat them? How did he do that? If he bought this gun from a gun store, I don't know what age you have to be to buy an AR-15. I think it varies in places. I think for a handgun, he would need to be 21, and
Yeah.
I think he had a handgun. So my understanding that
Handgun is
the
21.
reason I'm leaning that way is I haven't seen them go full blown like he used this AR-15 like they did with the last shooting, and I saw the video of the last shooting and it was gruesome. And he
But
used an
without
AR-15
knowledge of that, we
all over.
can do one of two things, right? We can either agree to use one of them as a scenario and talk about the scenario, or we can game out both scenarios, right? We don't know what he used, right? So we don't know if he got it legally or illegally. And in this case in particular, I think we can talk about it without knowing that, right?
I suppose so, but I think when we're talking about things that could or couldn't prevent mass shootings, like what would prevent this one? Like let's take it one at a time. Like what could have prevented this one in particular? I think that if there had been people who took the reports of him torturing animals and videos online and collecting firearms last year, if that had been taken a little bit more seriously, maybe something could have been done. When you hear
He was
about people
torturing animals,
when people
online?
upload videos of themselves torturing animals and that doesn't like get somebody to investigate, like that's a failing of its own. Like if that's not something we're paying attention to now, forget mass
It's
shootings.
tricky.
Let's just get all the animal torturers while we're at it. While
Like,
we're cleaning
I
the
don't-
streets up.
But the
I'm
damage I
mixing
did
my cases up. I think it was the previous one, the Buffalo one,
yeah,
where this guy had been reported. He had been investigated. They looked
Mhm.
into him and they didn't like keep him locked up forever. Now, in hindsight, it seems obvious that they should have, right? They should have. But in reality, how do you determine the people who are going to shoot up a place, a grocery store or a school, and the people you just think might? You can't prosecute. You can't lock up everyone who you think might.
I mean,
I
it
agree.
seems like the
agree with
FBI
you.
is fucking bad at figuring this out because
Really? You
what
think
the Pulse nightclub shooter, they came out after that one, if I recall, and we're like, oh yeah, this guy, he's been on our radar for a while. Oh no, we
Yeah,
didn't do
but
anything.
what about
We just knew that he was posting violent things and that he
You lock up
was
people
violent
who
towards
just
his wife and that he
Say
did all
mean
this other
words.
shit.
You lock up people.
But this shit is a
like,
percentage game, right? This is the same thing that happens when we have a failing of national intelligence and some big thing goes down, right? How many are they stopping? What percentage are they not? And what happens if you reduce the base number? The percent that go through may or may not be as high or low as we'd like, but you start restricting people's abilities to do this, less of these things go through. If you have some, you could go, all right, this kid's killing animals or whatever, or has been reported and he got checked out and who knows if that failed or not. The kid alone in his fucking room with a knife doesn't kill 21 people. Like the kid with a nuclear weapon kills a lot more than 21 people. So
what is your
prescription? Getting him assessed with?
Like how I'm wondering what your goal.
Yeah, what's your prescription? What's the fix?
How do we take the gun away from the kid?
Well, you'd like me to solve gun control spot? I'll answer that to a point of it. So I'll respond to your point, but like I don't think the idea of just ignoring it. Like you're saying, okay, there's a lot of guns out there. I agree with that.
I'm telling you,
there's a lot of guns out there. It will be hard to get rid of all those guns.
It's impossible to get rid of them.
Sure, I even for the sake of this argument, I will buy, or the sake of this conversation, I'll buy that starting point. It's impossible to get rid of all of them. That doesn't reduce the benefit of making a reduction in these weapons.
I'll give you another point,
number out there.
Like on top of the fact that it's impossible to shrink the number of firearms in the country, it's impossible to slow the growth of the number of firearms in the country. There are more guns today than there were yesterday, and that has been true forever. That there's never been a time where it's like, hey, we don't have as many guns today in the United States as we did yesterday. That is impossible to fix.
It's politically harder, but it's a much easier fix.
Illegal?
Yeah. Make what illegal?
Guns.
Because they don't want a civil war? That'll be a civil war.
Yeah,
right. That would be the
that
problem.
would be a very
if you want to go over there to the whole Bill of Rights and start taking chunks out, now you're going to have a civil war. When you're going to go into Alabama with your like federal peacekeeping force and go home to home and like, come out, we know you've got a shotgun, and grandma comes out and they gun grandma down, and that's all over the interweb. And the people in Louisiana say they're not going to kill my grandma. And there's not just one grandma getting gunned down on one doorstep. There are hundreds of them all over the country. And it's not just in the South. There's plenty of people up in Vermont that what are they, the live free or die?
Live free or die, New Hampshire. Yeah.
Their grannies are getting gunned down on doorsteps.
Anti-taxation message.
All of a sudden we realized maybe we should have left all those armed citizens who were just following the Bill of Rights alone. There will be a civil fucking war with grannies dead and politicians getting assassinated.
What are we okay with? What do we want? Do we want to go, okay, we're going to ignore this and allow this problem to continue as it is? Are we okay with this number of children dying? I don't have any kids. I've got no vested interest in this. I'm against, obviously, people's kids being killed for this, but I'm not sitting here going like I have a strong stance on guns, but it seems pretty simple on guns rather. But it seems pretty obvious to me that if a percentage of people are going to do these attacks, and the bigger and more powerful the weapon they have, the more damage they're going to do, then limiting the access to weapons they have is going to limit the damage they can do. Now you say, okay, well, we can't get rid of guns. We can certainly restrict that. And the analogy I was trying to make is for something as simple as something as interested as I am in fitness, the likelihood of me going to work out reduces when I have the simple step of going to the fucking gym as opposed to walking out my door and getting on a bike or running, right? If that simple step is something as effective enough for me that it reduces my workout by a percentage, making them jump some extra hoops to get their weapons is going to reduce that by a percentage too. Is it going to fix it? No. Is it going to be the only cure? No, but it's going to reduce that by some degree.
I think that you would see very little reduction in the outliers, which is what we're talking about.
Mass shootings have gone up
those
in the last
people,
30
what
years,
those people would hang on. What those people would hear is you can't have this, and there a lot of those like weird personalities are going to hear, well, I didn't want one until you told me I couldn't have one. Maybe I will shoot up your authoritarian ass. I don't think you can.
You're not going to stop the fanatics, Kyle. I agree 100%.
And when you start trying to ban a particular kind of weapon, you'll find that you've just jumped in to it'd be like if like a politician tried to jump into one of our favorite video games to balance it, not knowing anything about video games. Like it would be like if Mitch McConnell wanted to come over to Civilization 5 and the Lek mod and be like,
I love the culture win. That's what we're going to do.
And start balancing out all of the cultures. And he's doing it from his limited knowledge of that world and its rules and all the multifaceted things.
I'll take an L on that and say that I don't know a lot about this culture.
It's so hard. I couldn't do it.
But I was going to say, that's the other part I was going to go with this, but none of us are experts in gun law and the implications of each of these different policies. We're all
not an expert in anything, bro.
So exactly. Well, may or not be true, but we're all with we're all just talking out of our asses here for this. So I guess kind of engage with that core concept for me a little bit. And Kyle, why do you think the reduction in the power of what these people have accessible to
define
them
that?
Would not,
because you have to define that now,
sure.
and a politician would be the one to define it.
Well, but this is like almost changing the scope of the conversation. Are we talking the idea, or are we talking the specific input of what that is line by line of that? So I can't.
Okay. If you had a magic wand, if you had a magic wand that
sure.
could make guns less powerful, then obviously now less damage will be done by guns. Maybe we'll have to go to bombs then. But what I'm saying is that like it's not a feasible thing to do. All right, here the guy in New York that shot all those black people. He had one of those AR-15s who had been heavily modified to meet state compliancy in New York. He called it a cucked AR-15. And it was, but you can easily modify that if you have a brain into one that's not so. And you can
having a brain is a limiting factor. Right? Like right there, you just reduce the pool of people who can do that.
Filthy's made a point that like every hoop you have to jump through makes this some amount better. Will it be hard to measure? Impossible? Yeah, perhaps. But it's just true. I never tried marijuana until I went to Colorado. I just didn't want to. I don't know how to find an illegal drug dealer in North Carolina. And
you weren't motivated to do it either. It probably wasn't.
It is inherently true. Like the more barriers you have up, that's why I was curious about the drug question, because like a lot of the people who present this in the context of guns will be like, "Oh, the drug, the black market solved nothing. There's no way to solve drugs. They have to be legal." So I like your consistency on that, Filthy.
What I don't like to do is have like hypotheticals about like, I mean, fine to have for a conversation, but if we're getting to the core of the argument, it's like. Nobody wants children to get shot. That was fucking awful. It's really been bugging me.
It was literally just that one guy. Everyone else doesn't like what that one guy did.
Yeah. I wonder if what he thought while he was doing it. Like how fucked was he that he could even do something like that?
But there's a small hole in that argument, right? Which goes, we all might agree that we don't want the outcome. But if some people are not willing to take steps to reduce that outcome, then what is it? What do you actually take from that?
Well,
you go, yes, they don't want that, but there's a bigger thing that they do want. So, and again, like I don't have a vested interest in this argument personally, like one way or the other on gun rights. I don't own a gun, but I don't particularly care one way or the other on that. But I think
Memorial Day sale, they're cheap right now.
I thought about it a couple of years ago. Almost did end up with one, but
let me know. I got some tips.
Yeah, we had that conversation. But again, the point being that
exploding ammo.
If we do nothing about this, or rather allow this state of affairs to happen as it is, then we're basically saying, okay, we're accepting this degree, and perhaps even a rising degree, as you said, more guns are being pumped out than ever before, a rising degree of these types of shootings. And it's currently not only restricted to shootings, the school shootings, these get a lot of media attention for this, but any of these places could potentially happen. We've seen the nightclub shootings. There's nothing that prevents us being a park or a library or any other gathering of people. We had the concert shooting, right? Like these things are going to happen while there's people who are not people with these ideas and personalities and problems who have access to these weapons. And that seems the inevitable outcome of making them so readily available. So
I would, my solution, honestly, look, if I had a child in an elementary school, my solution needs to save my child. I don't want to start lobbying for dollars and putting an infrastructure together and start looking at Supreme Court justices, because that's what anybody who wants to yank guns away, that's their plan. Their plan is 30, 40, 50 years from now, maybe we can chip away. If that's your goal, to like legislate against guns, good luck. Good luck. Okay, you might as well legislate against oil. Get right on that one too. It's not going to fucking win. You're not going to win.